Hey, this is the Apartment Building Investing Podcast. I am your host, Michael Blanc. I'm really excited that you're here. Today's topic is IRA investing, but not in the way that you think. We're actually going to talk about an alternative to the IRA investing, which is better. Because the problem with IRA investing, did you know you actually can pay taxes with your IRA? That's right. So if you use your IRA, even if it's self-directed, and you invest in something that has debt or leverage associated with it, you are going to pay taxes in your IRA. Now, I didn't realize this until several years ago. A long time ago, I invested passively with my IRA, and I was hit with a tax, which was very, very odd. It's called a UBIT, Unrelated Business Income Tax. And I had to file tax out of my IRA. And I was just floored because I always thought that investing with your IRA, the whole point of investing with your IRA is not to have to pay taxes. So this was very odd to me. I never quite understood the UBIT. I then met Damion Lupo. Damion Lupo on the Real Estate Guys cruise. And again, I highly recommend going there next year. If you want to find out more about that, go to themichaelblanc.com/guys. And you can see all of the stuff that the Real Estate Guys have going on. It's a great group of people. They attract a great group of people. Awesome. Anyway, so Damion and I, we met about 3 years ago, spent more and more time. And he goes, Michael, you gotta learn more about this QRP thing. I said, what is this QRP thing? And that's exactly what we're going to talk about on today's podcast, because we really spent quite a bit of time last time we went on the ship about that, and it solves this tax problem and also solves several other problems that we have with the IRA. And really excited to talk about that. Before we get into this, I want to remind you guys, we have Dealmaker Live coming up. It's our annual conference. It's going to be in Dallas, July 26 and 27. It's going to be the largest multifamily conference there. In fact, if you guys have heard the Miracle Morning, made a big difference in my life. The author is Hal Elrod. He's keynoting, actually. Saturday morning, he'll be there. We got Robert Helms from the Real Estate Guys. We got Joe Fairless there, Adam Adams. A whole bunch of people are going to be speaking and sharing their knowledge. So it's going to be an unbelievable event. We have capacity for up to 500 people, and we'll probably exceed that. So anyway, make sure you check that out. It's themichaelblanc.com/event. All right, so I'm really excited about to share with you this QRP thing, because if you're a passive investor and you have a self-directed IRA and IRA, you have to use this thing. It makes sense for investing in a $50,000 syndication. You will actually save thousands of dollars by going this route. And if you're a syndicator, okay, this is something you would propose to your passive investors because it saves them so much money. So really, really excited to get into the podcast episode now with Damion Lupo about QRPs. Here we go. Damion, welcome back to the show.
Hey, man, it's good to be back with you. Good to be here.
It was really great hanging out with you on the Real Estate Guys cruise. And I had you on the podcast before, and we got your incredible life story. And you've been through a lot, and you've lost like a lot, and you've kind of clawed your way back, and you learn a lot of things in the meantime. So I'll direct people at the previous podcast episode if they want to get your backstory. But before we get into it, because what I want to talk about is how to properly invest with your IRA, and it may not be in the way that people most think about, because it was kind of new to me. And I was so excited about when I learned about this that I had to have you on the show to teach about it. But it's really, really cool. But before we get into that, just can you introduce yourself and give us a little bit of a background?
Yeah, definitely. So if you heard me before, if you haven't, doesn't really matter. Basically, I'm a professional investor, and I've started over 40 companies, and that's interesting because I've been in the streets. I've been out there doing stuff. I'm not just an Ivy Tower type of guy. I've done lots of hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate over the last 20 years, raised money, done my own deals. And now my focus is really on giving people all the fuel, all the capital for their deals, and unleashing their capital for doing things where they can control their stuff. Because over the last 10 years, watching really what was going on, I just saw people heading off towards a cliff, and it was really bothering me, especially when it hit my family and watched them retire broke. And I thought, there's got to be something I can do about this. And that's what I'm spending all my time with now is really giving people control and power in ways that they really didn't realize they had.
Well, what's fundamentally broken with the normal retirement plan? Like, what really aggravates you?
The thing that makes me crazy is that the whole idea, everything we're taught is about handing our money over to somebody and then smoking a bunch of opium. That's the strategy. Like, oh, okay, good. Everything is going to be fine in 20 years. Come check in on your accounts and your mutual funds in 20 years. That's crazy. That doesn't work. It works for the financial industry because they get fees. But the reality is, people are waking up just like I saw both my parents do. They woke up in their 60s and they're like, wait a second, we played by the rules and this thing didn't work. This isn't just your mutual funds with your 401ks, but the entire pension system is broken. We learned a lot about that on the cruise, where we realized, gosh, the pension systems where people are relying on these things, they a lot of government jobs, they're broke. They're bankrupt. And so if you're just relying on somebody else taking care of you, you're in for a reckoning. Or you can choose to listen to programs like this and educate yourself, because it's true that you can create your own wealth. You don't have to rely on somebody else. And that's what this is all about.
I think most people kind of agree that the pension plans are essentially broken. By the time you and I retire, there ain't nothing left. Then the fallback, of course, is 401ks, and really we're maxing out as much as we can and putting in 401ks. Why is that not maybe the best way to go?
The 401k plan is a really good plan for the financial institutions, because they get paid. You're basically their meal ticket. I mean, if you think about it, you put money in every month, so it's kind of an annuity. If you don't know what that is, an annuity is basically where you put money in and then you get this check every month for a period of time. Well, that's basically, it's the opposite. You're giving somebody a check every month, and what's happening is they're pulling fees off. So whether the markets do good or the markets do bad, they win, and you just watch your money sit there basically not moving other than maybe flatlining. 401ks don't give you any control. You really can't do what you want to do. It's very limited in what you can actually invest in, typically, just mutual funds. And the whole system is it's literally rigged for the people that are selling the shares and the people that are selling the shares as brokers. So either the companies that are going public or the advisors. So the truth is, it's not a good system unless you got a few $100 million and maybe you just want to have some equities. But for most people, this is not going to get you rich. It's probably going to keep you trapped, and you're going to wake up broke and retiring one day.
Yeah, but I got a solution for you, right? But everybody knows that 401ks, you can't really do much with, and you're stuck. But the solution, of course, is an IRA, because with a self-directed IRA, I can do more than just stocks. In fact, I can invest it in real estate, and now I have more control. I'm investing in something that maybe is more reliable, more consistent, and things of that nature. Now, this has always been kind of, in my mind, the way to go. So if you want to invest for the retirement, you have a selection of a Roth or traditional IRA, and you max that out, and then you use that and you self-direct it, and then you use that to invest in real estate, which is maybe not a bad plan. But as you pointed out, there's some problems with that. What are some of the problems with that route?
Yeah, the biggest problem with the IRAs, and for a while, it's funny because 15 years ago, I actually thought that was the best plan. So I had the IRA, the Roth IRA. I even had my parents set those things up. The problem is when you're doing things like real estate with a self-directed IRA, you get hit with these taxes. So there's all these problems. One, you get feed to death by custodians. You get hurt with taxes if you invest in apartments or any other syndication, anything else that has that has any type of leverage. If there's debt.
Well, now I'm really confused, Damion, because what do you mean? I thought that I'm investing with my IRA and I'm doing that tax-free or tax-deferred. Why are there taxes in my IRA now?
That's a really good question, and it's one of those weird things where we don't know why, but we just know it is. The IRS has decided, and probably because there's actually more money in self-direct in IRAs. There's like $8 trillion in IRAs than there are in the 401ks. So the IRS is saying, okay, what can we do? Well, let's generate revenue by taxing people if you use an IRA and there's debt. So great example, you invest in something, it costs $100,000 and your IRA invests $30,000 and then there's $70,000 in debt. Pretty typical kind of house if we're talking about simplicity. Well, the IRS says, hey, you only invested 30. You're getting a whole bunch of benefit from this debt, so we're going to tax you on all that profit. And people don't realize this because it's relatively new that this has been happening where the tax has been hitting people. It's called UBIT, and it comes from Unrelated Debt Finance Income, UDFI. Basically what this means is if you're using leverage or you're using debt, the IRS has decided that they should get some of your profits, and they get a big chunk, and it's ruthless. It's a 35% tax on that profit. So you could make $100,000 on a deal and lose $30,000. And you're thinking, wait, this is my IRA. Why am I losing money? But that's the tax, and that's why IRAs are brutal.
All right, so that's really fascinating. In fact, I was hit with this years ago when I passively invested with my IRA, and I thought I was pretty smart. Well, 7 years later, the knucklehead ended up selling this thing, and I got this giant UBIT tax in my IRA. And I was like, what is this thing? How can I be taxed in my IRA? So what I had to do through my IRA custodian is file a tax return, which required a creation of a tax ID number. And then we had to file taxes all the way back, going back to like 2007, and pay penalties and interest for not filing said taxes. And it was unbelievable. I was like, how can this possibly be? So I'm really glad that we're going to talk about a solution here next, but I want to understand the tax because for the longest time, I didn't understand how the UBIT is calculated. So if I was hearing you correctly, here's what you told me. On this example, $30,000 down, a $70,000 loan, so 30-70 split. So let's say I'll make it up, and I can't do math in my head, so you have to forgive me, but it's $50,000 of gain because I flipped a house or whatever the case may be. So my gain is $50,000, and so because I'm using debt for 70% of that, the IRS is saying, well, of the $50,000, I'm gonna tax you on 70% of that. Is that correct so far?
That's right.
And then so of that 70, and let's say that's $30,000. Of that so $30,000 is taxable. Then they apply a 35% tax rate to that, and so my tax is like 10 grand. And here I am thinking that I'm doing tax-free investing or tax-deferred at least investing, and apparently that is not true. Did I get that kind of right?
Yeah, and that's even with a Roth IRA, and that's where people say they're never going to be taxed again, and they go, wait a second, now I've got a big tax bill. How could this be? Because the IRA is subject to those. And one of the things that is really surprising, people say, well, I didn't take any debt out. So they might invest with some people, maybe in a syndication, and they say, well, I'm just using straight cash. I have no debt. If that deal has debt, you're going to get hit with UBIT, and that's what happened to you. There was debt in the deal, and and then you're hammered, and people say, well, I have investments, and they're with my IRA, and I haven't been hit with this. That's because it hasn't sold yet, and because it's basically every year the net income is less than $1,000. You're like, yeah, that makes sense because depreciation's offsetting. As soon as that deal sells, and a lot of syndications are selling now, a lot of deals are selling, that's when you get the surprise that you don't want to get in your mailbox.
Okay, so now that people are really depressed and frustrated, what is the solution to this problem?
So the solution is moving into a qualified retirement plan, which is it's similar to an individual 401k. And really the reason this is so valuable is because it's exempt from UBIT that is derived from leverage. So you can invest the same $30,000 with the same $70,000 of leverage, make that $50,000, and guess what? You get to keep the whole 50. It's because in the tax code, for whatever reason, the IRS has said this is exempt, the IRAs are not. The IRAs are subject to it, and it's zero. So then people generally say, well, crap, I already have an investment in an IRA. And the good news is you can convert. You can actually, it's called an in-kind rollover. So we move the asset from the IRA into the EQRP. And when that happens, it's now exempt. So you get to keep your asset, and whenever it cashes out, even if it's 2 weeks from now, it's going to cash out. You're now exempt. You get to keep all your money.
So you can roll stuff over from an IRA. Can you also roll stuff over from a 401k or no?
You can roll almost everything over. The only thing you can't is a Roth IRA. And that's everything else. You've got IRAs, 401ks, 457s, thrift savings plans, almost anything in the world. Even if you're working someplace, you still have options with in-service while you're still in service. So a lot of different options, a lot of misunderstanding around what people can do with these.
So QRP is like an IRA, but different. So what are some of the differences? We already talked about, hey, there's no UBIT. How else is it different?
So you truly have the ability to control the money. So with an IRA, there's always a custodian. Even if you have checkbook control, there's still a custodian. You still have to go through their system, and it can be slow. There can be delays. If you're doing a deal, you don't want delays. You may miss out on the deal. That's a big problem. The UBIT is a huge one. You can't put that much money into an IRA, and there are limitations on how much you can convert to Roth or contribute to Roth if you make too much money. So you have all these limitations of what you can do. If you like gold, you can't buy gold and hold it. It's limited. With an EQRP, you have the ability to put 10 times as much in, over $50,000 a year. Doesn't matter how much you make. You can have all of it be Roth or some of it be Roth. You've got checkbook control. So you see a deal, you can go and do the deal in 5 minutes. And a big thing that a lot of people don't realize, and this is very cool. So a lot of times we look at things that we want to do and we say, well, that's not really a retirement thing. For example, I think the best investment we can ever make is in ourselves and with other people, with coaches and mentors like you that have been there and done that. People go, well, yeah, that'd be great if I had an extra 20 or 30,000. It'd be the best money I could spend. Well, guess what? With an EQRP, you can literally borrow up to $50,000 out of your account and invest in your education. I mean, this is huge. You can't do that with an IRA.
No, you can't. You have to pay penalties or interest on that.
It'd be a distribution, right? You couldn't do that. This way, you can use your money to invest in yourself And then you can, because you're going to make so much more money with your mind if you get properly trained by people that have been there. So that's a massive advantage that is just sitting there waiting for you to tap into it.
That is pretty amazing. So then I got to ask, well, okay, so obviously there's got to be some kind of catch, right, Damion? But so how does, so let's ask for this. How much does it kind of cost to set up, and is it worth it?
So this is the big question. One of the things people even ask, they say, well, I'm not even qualified. And so that's because they've been boxed in by different products and different services. So anybody that wants to have self-direction of retirement money can be eligible, whether you work somewhere, whether you're a W-2, whether you're a full-time professional investor. Like, there's basically, if you want to do it, there's a way to do it. And it really depends. So the cost is really a function of whether you have employees, whether you don't. You can have an EQRP with employees, without employees. And so it ranges. It can be as little as, say, $1,500. And then if you have a plan with employees and multiple companies, you might be looking at something $5,000 to $6,000. So it ranges. Is it worth it? That's the big question. So the question is, if you can make up money, if you can make up returns out of your head with the right tool, what's it worth? If you can turn $20,000 into 50 or 100,000 over 3 or 4 years, is it worth investing a few thousand? Duh, of course it is. But it's not for the person that just is used to and wants to continue handing their money to a financial advisor and hoping and praying, and that's their strategy. This would be a terrible idea. It's for the person that wants to take control of their money and do things like apartment investing.
Well, that's right. So if we're doing things like that involve leverage, with real estate typically does, and the returns are, let's say, above average, which means that you might actually have taxable gains otherwise, this seems like a pretty good idea, because otherwise you're going to be taxed on at least 70 or 80% of whatever your profits are, which means I'm not really getting a major benefit of the IRA at all, and I can't use any of the depreciation really anyway. So I'm actually possibly paying more taxes. Is that right? Is that who it's for then?
Absolutely, and there's something that Tom Wheelwright and I talk about a lot because he generally, if you hear him, he'll talk about how stupid it is to buy real estate with a retirement like an IRA. And I generally say that's true if you're talking about long-term holding, like you buy a rental house. You want that depreciation, you want the bonus depreciation. So of course you don't want to put a tax shelter in a tax shelter. That's what he'll say. So we agree. Where this is really important is when you're thinking about real estate that you're going to buy and then it's going to be sold, say, in 4 or 5 years, because at that point you're toast. You're going to have all sorts of taxes unless it's in a tax shelter. So a retirement account, the EQRP, is the tax shelter to hold these syndications and these shorter term real estate. Long term, don't put long-term real estate inside of a retirement account because you lose out all the benefits. So it's a question: is it short-term? Is it long-term? Long-term, don't put it in. Short-term, awesome.
So I've also heard about the solo 401ks. In fact, you kind of mentioned it earlier. How is this different or the same as a solo 401k?
So it's under the same part of the code. The difference is a solo 401k cannot work if you have employees. Like, you could get a solo 401k and then say you hire somebody, you're in trouble because your solo is not built for an employee. So as you're having success, you want to hire somebody, you're stuck. It doesn't work for that type of environment. It's not very flexible. It also, in some states, it doesn't have proper liability protection, and that can be very, very devastating because a one-person plan is not covered by ERISA the way that multi-member plans are. Like a big 401k plan is basically indestructible. You can't get to it if you get sued. Your money's protected. With a one-person plan, it's not the same thing. So an EQRP has liability protection. You don't get a rental house without insurance. I mean, that's a dumb move. So it's the same thing. You want to have a retirement account that's actually protected in case somebody trips on your front door or decides to sue you because they think you have too much money, which is happening, unfortunately, a lot.
Yeah. So is there any reason to ever get a solo 401k, or should we just go to the EQRP?
There's no reason to do it unless you're just being cheap and you're trying to get something. If you want, it's like buying a house and saying, I don't need to worry about insurance. I'm sure it'll be fine. It's like saying nothing will ever change. I'll never get successful enough to hire somebody. You want to have the flexibility unless you're planning to be broke. If you're planning to be broke, definitely, in fact, just stick with an IRA. Honestly, you really want to think about where you're going and what's the best tool and the best team, because you have access to a world-class team, the best tool, protections in place. I mean, really, you have to decide: do you want the best or do you want just average?
So what about, you said one thing I picked up on, what about the fees? Like with a custodian, that typically they charge you based on assets held, and it can be substantial. sometimes. And you said there's no custodian involved. So what does the day-to-day look like? You talked about checkbook control. So can you talk about, okay, what are the fees then? And then what is it like if I want to write a check or deposit a check? What are the mechanics of that look like?
So with IRAs, there's always going to be transactional type of fees. Even if you have checkbook control, you're going to have fees. A custodian is in business for fees. They're there to either charge you a percentage of assets or transactional fees. That's just how they make money. And there's a lot of good custodians, but let's just understand how these industries work. So with an EQRP and many solo 401ks, you don't have transaction fees. You literally have a checkbook. So once you have control of your money, there are no more fees. There's no more assets under management fee, and there's no more transaction fees. With an IRA, those fees are kind of unlimited. And some places say, oh, it's maximum of $2,000 or $3,000 a year. Oh, good. That's great. Only $2,000 or $3,000 a year. With the EQRP, you're limited to a few $100s in, and that's it, regardless. So it's really a question of, do you want to have things flat and something that you can plan on, or do you want to have maybe the big mystery of unlimited fees? I think it's pretty obvious.
Yeah. So where does the money then actually live? Does it live in my bank account? Does it live in a special QRP bank account? Or where does the money actually live?
So the EQRP has its own bank account, and you're the signer. So that's one of the great things. You are the only one that touches your money. And for a lot of times, people look at this and they think, this is a little strange. I actually have control of my money, because we're taught and trained that we're too stupid and we're too dumb to actually have control of our money. I have people all the time that say, I just had a check show up for $650,000 or $100,000. And it's freaking me out a little bit, because they're not used to having their own money. So it is kind of funny when you actually control your money, the different experience emotionally when you're in control of it.
Well, one of the, I guess, the pains of investing with IRA is that there's paperwork involved. So if I want to sign, let's say, an operating agreement because I want to invest in syndication, that needs to be sent to the custodian. This takes days. Sometimes they lose it. You have to figure out where it is. So if I want to do the same thing for my EQRP, let's say I'm an investor, I have an EQRP, what does that signing process look like?
It's really, really intense. You're going to sign the document and send it back, because you're the trustee.
Is that much work?
If you can sign, you're done. I mean, that's how fast it is. It's very, very simple, very, very quick, and there's no back and forth. It doesn't take weeks. It takes minutes.
So you've basically signed your own documents as the whatever owner of the custodian of your own QRP. Is that it?
That's it. You're literally in charge of your plan, and so there's no third party that you've got to go through.
All right, so let me ask you this dumb question. So typically, the average syndication is, a minimum investment of $50,000, sometimes $100,000. If I'm, thinking of, I have at least $50,000 in my IRA right now, does it make sense to do this, or is it overkill for that? I mean, at what point does it make sense?
So it's funny. I look back and I think when I first started, I had negative $6,000. That's how much I had. I mean, I took out a $6,000 loan for my first house that I bought. And what I would say to people is, if you're looking at things where you have an opportunity, like a syndication deal, like a real estate, like an apartment deal, and you can take $50,000 and potentially double or triple it over 5 or 6 years, does it make sense to spend a few $1,000s to create $50,000 or $100,000 in profit? I think the answer is pretty self-evident.
Well, let's talk about it. I mean, typically with the kind of returns we're looking for, we're looking to double people's money in 5 to 6 years. So if you're investing 50,000, you're going to make 50,000 in 5 to 6 years when it's sold. So of that $50,000 gain, 70% is going to be taxed. Again, we're down to, so 30,000 is taxable at a 35% tax rate. So it's like 10 grand in taxes.
So there's an easy return.
So it costs you $3,000 to set up. And so even for a $50,000 investment, it makes a lot of sense. And then you can contribute up to $50,000. You can borrow from it. You can write checks. The documentation is a lot easier. Man, where was this 10 years ago, Damion?
The funny thing is, it was sitting right in front of us. I mean, there's just a lack of awareness, because if you want to know why you know things and why you don't know things, just follow the money. All the money pushes certain media and certain marketing to get us to do certain things. And if you think about where the money goes with fees and things, it goes to a certain place that controls our money. This is not somebody controlling your money. This is you controlling your money. So it's right now, a lot of people are realizing how much they've been kind of screwed by the IRA stuff with real estate. And there is a way to fix it, though, and that's the good news.
All right, so someone listening to this going, "This is it. This is unbelievable. How do they find out more about this?"
The best thing they can do is they can get a hold of the report that I wrote on the QRP and get a copy of the QRP book. They can send the keyword. It's going to be really, really complicated. Doors. Send the word doors to 72,000. You just text it. So you're probably watching this on your phone or you got your phone handy. Grab it and send that word. DOORS to 72,000. That's going to get you a report, and I'm going to send you a copy of the book too, so you'll be able to get a copy of the book and educate yourself. Your job is to figure out if this is a good plan, and if it is, let's do something, and so you're not paying the taxes. But really, the first step is education.
Yeah. So by the way, this is this book here. It's called QRP for Syndicators. And you're giving away a free copy, actually. So if you guys want a free copy, go to themichaelblank.com/QRP. And brings you to a page. You can request a free copy of this book. And if that's something for you, and then Damion can help you set that up. So Damion, any other parting words?
Yeah, I often hear, the knowledge is power and applied knowledge is power. Well, I mean, the reality is this is probably this is the most powerful retirement idea that's out there in the United States. And to look at this and not do something with it is just kind of tragic, because there is a way to not pay taxes literally for the next 100 years. There is a Roth piece inside of the EQRP, and you can transfer this to heirs. There's a way to literally opt your family out of taxes for multiple generations if you pay attention to this. Just think about that and understand that it's waiting for you. It's a choice to pay taxes, just like Trump talked about when he said, paying taxes kind of seems stupid to me. Well, whether you like him or hate him, the truth is the code is available for you to use, and if you want to use it, this is a great tool to look at.
Hey, thanks so much for being on the show, Damion. It's been fantastic.
Thank you so much, Michael.
All right, so we covered a lot, but for your note takers, here are the main benefits of a QRP. The main one is there's no UBIT tax. All right, so hopefully you drive that home, that you will get taxed when the syndication sells. You will get taxed roughly around 70% of whatever gain is. You will get taxed at whatever the prevailing tax rate is, 35%. So that's the main advantage. The secondary advantage is that there's a lot lower fees than you have with a self-directed custodian, and a big benefit, the paperwork is so much less. So actually making the investment, depositing a check, it's kind of a pain. And it's a kind of a pain if you're a passive investor and if you're a syndicator dealing with a passive investor who has an IRA. So please make sure you get a QRP set up. Contribution limits are much higher, up to $50,000. That's really cool. And what I really love is you can borrow up to $50,000 without penalty. And he's got a good point, Damion does, because your best investment really is in yourself. So you could set up your QRP and use it for education. You can use it to attend Dealmaker Live, or to check out our mentoring program or online course, or whatever the case may be. What a great use and investment of your IRA funds. So in order to get more information about that, he's giving away a free book, guys. Okay, free book. So two ways you can do it. If you're on the go, you text the word doors to 72,000, DOORS, doors to 72,000, or you can go to themichaelblank.com/QRP and fill out the form online as well. Either way, you get a book called The QRP for Syndicators. Awesome book. So make sure you do that, and hopefully we'll see you at Dealmaker Live. If you're a passive investor, you need to be there. If you're an active investor, you need to be there. That is themichaelblank.com/event. All right, guys, go get yourself a QRP. That's what I'm going to do next. Check you guys later. Catch you next episode. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. Now, as the next step, download this ebook right here, okay? When you've downloaded that, make sure you also subscribe to my YouTube channel, because then you can get all of the videos that I release as soon as I release. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel right now. Click on that right now. And then also make sure that this is the next best video to watch, is this one right here. So hope you enjoyed that. I'll catch you next time.